of an English piece of assessment or any kind of language assessment is reliability. The idea that if you do one of these major standardized tests like IELTS or TOEFL, that it should be the same. It should be the same degree of fairness if you do that in Brasilia, in Senegal, in London, in Bangkok, wherever you do it, you should be able to, it should be fair for all of those students. But it's also on a national level as well. The idea if you do it in the north, east, southwest of a country, in an urban area, in a rural area, it should be fair for all students. And to make sure it's fair, we really need to know what we are assessing, what kind of competence are we assessing in this exam, to make sure we are assessing that competence and only that competence, and not anything else. So no other factors can unfairly advantage a student who's taking that test.
Yeah, and that also includes perhaps providing necessary accommodations and inclusive practices in assessing students, all students.
Absolutely. So that might be providing more time for certain students or particular equipment that might be needed. And I think this is one of the challenges that can be faced certainly in low income contexts where that may not be possible. There may not be the time for that. There may not be the equipment available for that. And that is where people who are already disadvantaged can be further disadvantaged.
Yeah. And that's when an assessment becomes unfair.
In our first interview today, we'll be talking to Professor Barry O'Sullivan, the Head of Assessment Research and Development at the British Council.
So welcome, Barry. First of all, we're going to ask you about the key underlying principles which make assessment fair and effective.
That's a really interesting question, actually. Not only is it an interesting question, but the wording is interesting, because when we think about communicating from language testers to the rest of the world, we have our own language, like a lot of other areas, and our own jargon. So fair has a specific meaning. Basically, it means that it's accessible by all and without bias towards anybody within the population. Most exam boards will have systems for accounting for students with various disabilities. So they'll allow for special accommodations. And we thought over the last number of years that that's not quite enough. Because really what you need to be thinking about is your test as well. You need to think about the test content. So to what extent are people of disability and people from minority groups represented in your tests? So like all doctors aren't men and all nurses aren't women. And like that's a fairly simplistic example, but you know what I mean? So for me, that's what fairness is. We tend to broaden that nowadays to, it used to be called EDI, Equality, Diversity, Inclusion. We now refer to them as JEDI, and not the knights from the film, but it's justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion. And the justice idea is that we bring everybody in under the umbrella of fairness. So it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, what your ability or disability is. Your test should be open and fair to everybody. A few years back, I wrote a paper called The Comprehensive Learning System, where I argued that we need to integrate all elements of the system. And people who know me and hear me talk often see me make the
Rukia, are we done? I think Chairman is now ready to start us off. Mr. Frederick?
volunteers, if you can take over, because it seems Frederick has been kicked out. Elga, if you could kindly maybe chat, because we can't hear you.
Okay, I think we can start. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. So, as we had shared earlier, we are looking at how to evaluate the potential effectiveness and appropriacy of the digital content tools and platforms for assessing learners providing useful feedback. And as you can see clearly, the focus is going to be on digital tools and on assessment. I know we shall be looking back at the video we have just played with time, but the objective of this presentation is to review what makes digital content tools and platforms for assessment effective, and also to discuss how the digital tools and platforms can enhance feedback. Now, maybe in our chat boxes, or we can randomly write some of the digital tools we use as we are going on with this presentation at your own school level, or maybe in your presentations in seminars or whatever. Which digital tools of assessment are you familiar with, or do you know? As we continue, Rukia, you'll be maybe reading some of the tools that the learners or that the teachers already use and know about as we continue with this presentation. So there's a key question here. What should you ask yourself and probably your learners when reflecting on the outcomes of an assessment after you have administered it, and the value of the tools? What should you ask yourself and probably your learners when reflecting on the outcomes of an assessment tool? Arthur Otieno says projector. Digital tools of assessment. Okay. What digital tools of assessment do you use, especially those ones that students like? They have Quizzes, Lydia, good. Quizzes is one of Kahoot, very good, Isaac. I think Kahoot, most of us are familiar with. You can use it well. Leonard says Chat GPT. Good. That's a digital tool of assessment. We can keep posting. Mentimeter. Wow. Lydia, thank you for that. It's a good digital tool that we good to explore. I'm glad we have put in the chat box. Are there any more? Can keep putting them in the chat box. Canva, very good. Keep. Canva is one of the digital tools that we use. Same to Nejashi. Canvas. Quizlet, very good. Nuru, that's a good digital tool. Google Forms, that's nice. Keep. I believe that most of us are familiar with them, as much as there are challenges of using these digital tools in most of our school setups and most of our school environments, that they play a very significant role. Google Classroom, one day it says Canvas. Good. Maybe you can also, if you don't mind, you Google Forms. I know one of the main challenges of using these digital tools, even before we go far, is the accessibility in our schools. But apart from that, you can type any other challenge of using such digital tools for our assessment. So, Rukia, next slide. So we have got digital content, we have podcasts, videos, slideshows, we have interactive quizzes, we have polls, we have surveys, we have interactive infographics, we have text-based contents, we have ebooks, we have simulations. They all are key. They give us a lot of information and they help us in preparing our learners and maybe having them understand better away from the traditional teaching methods for which we are less engaging. One thing about the digital contents and digital assessment tools is that they are more engaging at a learner level. Nancy Wambura is saying something. ChatGPT can be unreliable sometimes. I've had a number of times I got one that was not right. I think I like that. That's a challenge that Nancy, not Nancy, what's her name again? Yeah, Wambura says that ChatGPT has wrong information. Maybe also at one point we shall learn something called prompt engineer. You need to know how to send your prompts on ChatGPT to get the most reliable information. So you have to have a prompt engineer. I will send on our various groups how to go to make a prompt engineer, which gives you the most accurate. I'm responding to Nancy so that what you get from ChatGPT is accurate. You don't just type anything and then you expect accuracy. There is a prompt, what we call a prompt engineer, what prompts ChatGPT to give you the best feedback from what you need to learn. Back to the slide, Rukia, are the benefits of using we have already done that. Some of the assessment tools. Maybe in the chat, you can also go ahead and tell us how we use this. And just like Nancy, maybe the challenges of using this, these tools. I didn't see people mention a digital tool like the book creator. I didn't see that. A digital tool like the book creator, which for most teachers of English, I find it most ideal. It's free. And the book creator, you can actually have students type a poem, say the poem, and it takes the audio, and they can even have pictures and images that go with the poem. And it's very, very interesting. We will look at it at some point, I know. So we continue with feedback here. What just said ChatGPT?
Okay, let's turn into tone. Are you ready?
Okay. So let us look at the next slide, Rukia. So these are some of the digital assessment tools. Google Forms. We are all familiar. This one requires feedback. Maybe you can share your own experience with using this. Which one have you used of this, and how did you find it? The Google Forms or Kahoot or Edmondo or Quizzes or Microsoft Forms. We are so creative. We had more that we added from the group. I think, Rukia, you will update. We had someone talking about Mentimeter. Kahoot says, not Kahoot, Roger says Kahoot, it was so interesting and had quick feedback. And as we prepare Kahoot, I want to encourage us to be more, when you prepare Kahoot, for example, if you are preparing Kahoot on a set text or on vocabulary or on the meaning of words, it is good to allow your learners not to work as individuals, but in groups. It's more competitive. They work in teams. It is more nice than a student entering Kahoot as an individual. So try that and you see how it flows. Especially if you have a computer lab and you have a lesson in the afternoon and you have internet, you can divide your class into 5 or 7 groups. Just put some key questions about characters in a set book or a poem and let them respond. It's fun and it enhances collaboration and it enhances their use. Ada Otieno talks about Socrative. Good. Can other where you are, can you talk more? Can you tell us more about Socrative? Your experience? Other? He cannot be reached. Okay. So I'm still waiting in the chat box the benefits of digital tools. One person said here that is Kahoot was interesting. Lydia Nabangi said they make learning interesting and there's quick feedback. Good. What other benefit do you know of this digital tools? You can keep sharing in the chat boxes. Yes, Rukia?
Sorry, I'm not able to see the charts since I'm sharing the slide. I don't know if Jenny is there. She can help.
Isaac says Google Forms, he finds them more analytical. Good. They are more analytical. Mumo says Google Forms are friendly and customizable. Lydia one day says it makes preparation easier and saves on time. These are the benefits. Good. Just keep sharing what you find valuable with the Google tools and the digital content. As we look at now the types of questions you need to you can make use of when using these digital tools. We all know these types of questions. Like Kahoot, normally we make use of multiple choice. You give learners 4 choices and they choose one. Kahoot also, we make use of true or false. Google Forms.
Yes, Tobias, can I be heard? I'm just trying to... Hello.
Yes, Chairman,
Sorry for the unstable network.
Java, we are on. Are you now okay? He has dropped off again. Okay. Don't worry, Chairman. We wish you the best as you locate the network. We know there was a sudden blackout there, and it's quite inconveniencing. So you can use true or false when preparing your digital assessment tools, where the learner, the more learners don't like typing too much. I don't know if you know that. If you know that, learners really don't like using typing too much. So this multiple one choice, true or false, they make it more exciting. Don't put so much that the learners start being disinterested in what they're doing. So short answers, they fill in the blanks, matching of items, those are exciting ones. The drop and drag, simulation, ranking, peer review. Nature says matching homogeneous in its nature. Okay. Nejashi, can you explain that, please? That one looks interesting. Nejashi? Abdul Wakil.
Hello, Chair.
Yes.
I've really having a problem with electricity this side, but I think I can be heard.
Yes.
Socrative. Can I say something about Socrative?
Yes. You are finally, you can be heard, yes.
Now, with Socrative, a teacher can be able to different students.
We cannot hear you clearly, Arthur.
I don't know whether I can be heard now.
Mm-hmm.
With the Socrative,
Yeah.
a teacher can have a laptop in front of the class or wherever he's sitting, even in the staff room or wherever. Then he can be able to, each student has like his own bracket from the screen of a teacher. So the teacher distributes quizzes to these students and they are timed. So each student has his own laptop and there are many quizzes. They are timed and there's a specific time or seconds or minutes for each and every quiz because it also tests speed. So at the end of the specified time for the whole session, a teacher can be able to know which student scored how many questions, how many did they skip. So the teacher is able to identify the gaps in that particular class using that particular app. Socrative.
Wow. That's great. That's interesting. I was waiting for Nejashi. Nejashi, do you want to say something? Okay. Let us look at the effectiveness. The effectiveness of these tools. And we have already seen the feedback from some of us. So these tools help assess various skills like knowledge recall, critical thinking, problem solving. Which other skills do you assess using these digital tools? You can, Emmanuel Ika says they boost learner creativity. Good. Learners can come up with their own many other items and ideas from what they are doing. So the tools, as they promote, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration. And mainly, we are really keen on collaboration because with collaboration, most of these digital tools allow the learners to work together in groups. They have to work together because it's normally more fun and enjoyable if they are working as a team. So there's this collaboration. Then you can use this Kahoot, like Kahoot now, for instance. Mainly, I prefer using Kahoot at the end of the lesson as a summary of what you have just taught. It is best at the end of the lesson. Maybe those 5 minutes of summarizing the lesson are very good in using Kahoot so that the learners can reflect. But those who want to use at the beginning of the lesson also, it is a good tool because it can help you assess what the learner knows before you start teaching. There's a lot of feedback in the chat box uh, Constance says promotes relatedness. Very good. Motivation. Grace Robert. That's perfect. Learners are looking forward to the lesson and always they anticipate the next lesson. What is your take also? I don't know how people take here on students and phones, where we are headed. I just hope where the learning is headed, learners will be allowed to carry phones with which can be managed at school level, because it may help solve many problems. They boost creativity. Good, Emmanuel. Such tools many times help in enhancing creativity. Najashi, critical thinking. Good. You can share some of the best digital tool for the best skill. It will help us more. If maybe you know Kahoot can help in recall, good. If you know maybe the book creator can help in critical thinking, if you know maybe this tool can be for this work, we'll appreciate in the chat so that we know which specific digital tool can assessment tool can be effective for a specific skill that is there. I think that is okay, Rukia. So there's the part of analysis and the part of analytics. Okay, there's something from Margo here. They change from the normal monotony to exciting lessons. From the normal monotony to exciting lesson, and helps in boosting memory. I agree with you, Margo. The memory, learners remember more what they learned through these digital tools. I just also realized that most of our learners can never forget what they were part of, or what they were involved in, and what they did practically in class. Most of the learners. Somebody mute kindly. Rukia, can you mute? There's some background. Okay. So the analytics, there are ways you maybe get feedback from the tools that we use. There's a way that you want to see the data, the scores of the learners, and how to put them in a way that can be used for, can be suitable for our own consumption at school level, depending on how you analyze data and performance. We have the performance metrics, the engagement data, the item analysis of items, comparative analysis, progressive tracking, feedback mechanisms, the reports, then the predictive analytics. Now, I don't know, how do you, maybe in the chat box, how do you maybe rank, how do you analyze the data, the feedback? Let's say the Kahoot, they were a group of 20 students, and they are playing that game. Eventually, there is the winner, and there are the others. how do you go about it at your own level? How do you make sure that the students don't get out of the class discouraged? Because some of us, we can easily, through the scores, discourage most to kill the student, the morale of the student more. I know CBC is trying to move us away from this kind of life, which is not good life. How do you make sure that every learner feels that their response is okay? Maybe you can type in the chat box. How do you make sure that every learner feels? Margot says, through scores you can reinforce even those who are not winning. That's good. Margot can share with us, how do you reinforce those who are not winning? Margot.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I think by saying reinforcing is for you to encourage the ones who have not won. Maybe you can give them a gift for them to practice. Let's say, for instance, it was about geography, a book. Maybe you can give them a map so that they can learn more after the lesson.
Okay. That is the take of Margot. Any other person? How do you balance? How do you balance between those who are making progress and those who are not? Okay, Isaac says, I avoid the winner takes it all approach. Instead, everyone gives feedback on the lesson learned. Wow, that's a good way. That's a balanced one. Antonin says, start with a positive comment. Always. That's good. Antonin, I like that. It makes try to be positive, not so negative, and try to mix the learners per ability. Assign the bright students, that's from Rhoda, with the task of writing down the answers. Group comes with the weaker students to present. Okay, I want to hear from Rhoda. Can you explain to us this? This looks interesting, Rhoda. Hanaka. Rhoda, would you mind explaining this?
Yes. When you have students of different abilities, the ones who tend to be bright tend to finish tasks very fast, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you mix the abilities, because you cannot put bright students together, weak students together, so you mix the abilities, then you allow the ones who are very fast to do the most of the work, okay? Then the ones who are a bit weaker, then they get to present whatever they have discussed as a group. So all of them get to participate. So we are the ones who came up with the answer, but then you're the ones the weak ones are the ones now who present the answers for the group.
Wow. So mixed ability grouping, right?
Yes.
That's a good one. Wow. So let us look at go back to the slide here. The analytics will help to make informed decisions, to enhance teaching effectiveness, to improve learners' outcomes. Yeah, from the responses that you get normally, at your own level also, you make decisions on whether your teaching is effective or not from the feedback you get from those digital assessment tools, maybe in terms of percentages or the figures or the scores. The scores are not just meant for the learners. The scores are meant also for the teacher to assess your effectiveness in teaching. So if, for example, you've taught and from the quizzes or the Mentimeter or from the Quizlet, the feedback you're getting from the learners, a good percentage of them are not giving you the feedback that you need. Then you have to actually go back to the drawing board and try to see if you can change something about your teaching. So assessment is not just meant for the learner. Assessment is also meant for the teacher. I think this one we have mentioned many times here. So it makes you have those informed decisions and to change our approach. Adaptability, the digital assessment tools can offer adaptability in various ways to meet diverse learner needs. And we are told here that you tailor assessment based on individual student performance and learning styles. You tailor assessment based on individual student performance and learning styles. We have already discussed this, and Rhoda has told us about the mixed ability grouping. It's a high time before you come up with assessment, you understand your classroom. You don't come up with an assessment without understanding your class. Understand individual students and how do they learn, their learning styles. It's important that you move with the learners. We want to move from this traditional approach of assessment where you, as a teacher, you set an exam to prove a point. You set an exam to show them that they did not read anything. I think that's a very brutal way of doing things. You need to see your learners, see how they learn, how they love learning, and assess them depending on how they will want to learn and how they love learning, without compromising, of course, the standards of teaching and assessment. Then, number 2, we are told that change the difficulty of questions in real time based on student responses, providing a more tailored experience. So you change the difficulty of the questions in real time based on student responses. I think that one's direct. There's a way you can dilute, let me use that word, dilute the question so that the students feel like they are part of it and they learned something. So accommodate also different learning abilities, adjust font sizes, and offer alternative formats. This one is about the presentation, the general presentation, the fonts, the color. I saw some of us when we are doing maybe, let me still continue talking about Kahoot, which most of us understand, where you use blue for the first answer, red for the next answer, yellow, purple. You see, you keep varying so that the learners can follow. And then, of course, learning abilities are also different. We have learners with issues of dyslexia. We know that very well, so that they may require more time and more larger fonts and more accommodation within the classroom. Know your learners again. Allow students to take assessment at their own pace, offering extended time or alternative schedule as needed. Students are competitive in nature, and so you realize that some of the digital tools, naturally, I don't know if you know that, some of them are time-bound. Some of them make the learner run. So if you know some of these digital content tools that require the learner to be in a rush, like I wouldn't really advise some of them for a class which students are slow in learning. I wouldn't advise a teacher here to use, for example, if it's a class that you know my learners are slow, you can't use Kahoot to destroy the learner because Kahoot requires speed. We all know that. A lot of speed. You have to be on toes for the feedback or the score is given depending on how fast you gave the answer or the response. So it's good you look for digital. If you want to use Book Creator gives the learner all the time to go and write the poem, decorate the poem, record the poem, put images. Book data gives the learner time to maybe also write a journal, write an essay, and do everything without a hurry. So also look for those ones that give learners time to, as much as possible, give you the right feedback as the teacher. Then provide a mix of questions. We have already looked at this. Multiple choice essays, you can vary. You don't need to narrow down on only one. You vary the questions. Then we have the multilingual support. Offer assessment in multiple languages to support non-native speakers. I know this is this applies to international schools. I know our basic language in classes is English, so we may not have a big challenge with this. But those of us who are here who are not maybe Kenyans, I know some of us here, we are not necessarily from Kenya. We are from outside this country. So when we talk about multilingual support, ensure that actually the learners, the ones who know Spanish very well in your class, the others who know French very well. There are those who know Portuguese very well. Like maybe students from Mozambique who prefer Portuguese. Students from, there are many African countries where they prefer French. So offer assessment in multiple languages to support non-native speakers. Then contextual learning, incorporate real-world scenarios or problems. Incorporate real-world scenarios. Be very real in your development of assessment tools. Don't be abstract. Don't be abstract. Be very real and make sure that you develop assessment that touches on what the learners already know. We talk about from known to unknown. We don't talk about from unknown to known. What they already know in the environment, in their setup. If you're talking about climate change, you're talking about environmental conservation, what is in the immediate environment? What is in the immediate scenario? What do they already, are they in contact or in touch with already? That's will help us more. Maybe you can keep texting in the chat also how do you adapt these digital tools in your own level at your own schools. Apart from what we have here, you can share with us how you adapt. How you adapt. David Amayo. David Amayo says here, contextual learning sets space for authentic assessment. Very good, I agree with you, Amayo. Contextual learning is the best for authentic assessment. Any other feedback on how you can adapt your digital assessment? You can just type it in the chat to be able to get your feedback as we continue with this presentation. Okay. So we look at the effectiveness. So the adaptive features, they enhance engagement. Once you adapt, there will be automatically engagement. Once the digital tools, assessment tools that you're using are adaptive, there will be engagement in the classroom session, and learners will likely participate more, and there will be more positive feedback. Then they ensure that assessments are more inclusive and effective for all learners. Remember here, we are actually advocating for you to move with the entire class, not for you to move with a few students in the class. The WIT says promote differentiated assessment. Okay. Thank you. Maybe you can tell us more about the differentiated assessment. I know a good number of us may not be fully aware of it. Would you mind? She is not. Okay, she will type for us more. Although the digital platforms, they give us real-time feedback. They can help improve learning outcomes. They give automated responses, and of course, the examples are there, as already shared with us before the beginning of this. Presentation. The challenges, of course, technical issues, potential disruptions during assessment. Like I've just seen a technical issue with the chairman here. The chairman, potential disruption.
I agree. I cannot present, but I can hear you well, Tiberius. Go on.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
Those are called technical issues that happen. Learner engagement, difficulty in maintaining student motivation. You must really be a good teacher to make sure that students are not disinterested in what you're trying to do, or students are not aloof when you are doing this. Difficulty in maintaining engagement in digital assessment in a remote learning context. True. Most of our learners digress, and you know that. You may find that our learners do other things that are not really good when it comes to digital things. They may digress. So our good sister lady here has given us some feedback on what. Okay, there's some a lot of. David Amas says differentiated assessment involves tailoring the assessment to meet the individual needs of each student. Good, thank you for that. Stella Mawit says feedback can't be as it is in person. It's a challenge. Mogaka, pick topics where you know the weak can participate confidently, e.g. a comprehension passage that deals with football if the weak ones love sports. Wow, that's intelligent enough. From Mogaka, Josephine. I think that one is like lovely. So customize this from how you understand the learners. Training and support. Let's go back to the slide. Teachers may lack the necessary training, limitation in providing meaningful feedback. I believe we, in our subsequent sessions, will have time to go through these tools practically. I'm sure most of us may not be familiar with most of these tools. Today was just an overview of them. But again, in a very practical environment where we have that support and training, it's easier for us to use them in our own situations. Accessibility, not all tools are designed with inclusivity in mind. Students with disabilities can be disadvantaged. So it's up to you as a teacher to actually decide, knowing your learners, which one will discriminate my learners who are not able in one way or another. So, recommendations, some of them are here. Regular updates, training opportunities, gathering learners' feedback, encourage thoughtful evaluation of digital resources, include AI in assessment, personalized learning paths. I think we have made mention of this in the course of the presentation. There's some more feedback from in the chat here. different activities from order to take place in the same lesson, i.e. divide the class into 5 minutes, 10 minutes learning, 5 minutes task, 10 minutes, okay. I lost that chart there. You're saying, okay, a different task divided with the time of the lesson. Avoid lectures throughout the class. So you have to differentiate the activities and have it divided into lessons. I think that is that, unless there is some feedback. Chairman?
Yes, thank you very much, Vice Chair, for assisting. That's why we need a Vice Chair. Thank you very much for taking us through. Sorry for the disruption. I think we have also covered that. I think now we can maybe find out how digital tools can be used in our new curriculum, especially for the Kenyans. If we could put some something on the chat about the competency-based curriculum. There are different pathways. Can they use the CBC? We can put a few in the chat. Otherwise, thank you for listening. We are almost coming to the end, but we could maybe explore that a bit, the CBC in the Kenyan context. Back to you, Tiberius.
Okay. I'm looking at the chat for feedback. Which digital tools have we in the Kenyan curriculum now? What can we assess? Is there any feedback? If there is none, then I'll hand it over to maybe Rukia.
Tiberius, there is feedback. People are grateful, and someone says, okay, that one you had already talked about, but they're saying Isaac says very insightful indeed, quite informative from Rogers, wonderfully presented, better by Lynn. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you, nice presentation. I've learned a lot from this session, thank you. That's from Kun. And there's a lot of appreciation. They've learned a lot from your presentation.
Thank you. So I think if we have no more feedback, it is 8. We intend to be very, very, very time conscious in our presentations and in our undertakings. I think we can.
So, before you wind up, we remind them of our next webinar on 16th. We have another webinar on 16th. We welcome everybody on board. On 16th, same time, we have our next webinar.
Yeah, on 16th, we have our next webinar. I will also endeavor, we will be sharing with our chapter leaders the detailed use of these digital tools, practical use. I understand most of us may not practically know how to use some of these tools. We would be sharing on walls, maybe so that each one of us can know how to use each of the tools. We don't assume all of us have used these tools in our classroom setup, but we encourage you as much as possible to start taking English classes in the computer lab. We are really encouraging you to be good friends of the computer lab teacher if we have to achieve something for the learners in our situations back in school.